is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
Good Sunday morning. I'm Phil Prazan from NBC5.
And I'm Gromer Jeffers, political writer with the Dallas Morning News. This morning, we're taking an in-depth look at the ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts on Texas college campuses.
It's a hot topic, and a controversial Texas law is now on the books for less than 3 weeks.
When DEI is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back.
Those are jobs that should have never existed. That is ideological warfare that should have never happened in college campuses.
None of us really understand why the bill was passed, what it was really supposed to do, why it was necessary, and everybody's just kind of in a state of limbo.
In the past few years, colleges put in place programs and offices to recruit and welcome people of color to campus. However, critics argue they exclude white, Jewish, and Asian students in the process. Texas lawmakers passed Senate Bill 17 last year, and today we now know people on both sides of this issue will watch how universities implement the new law. It stops public universities in Texas from having an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and prevents them from hiring or assigning officers, employees, or contractors to performing those duties. This recently was in the spotlight in a high-profile congressional hearing after presidents at certain universities gave unclear answers on keeping Jewish students free from harassments. The presidents of Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania resigned. It sparked major donors to rethink donations to the schools. And that's where we started our conversation this week with a supporter of the new Texas law.
In the weeks ahead, the conservative think tank, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, will roll out a tip line for people to report violations of the DEI ban. We spoke with senior fellow Sherry Sylvester.
The Ivy League professors, 1 billion people watched that testimony. It was the highest viewership for congressional testimony that we've ever seen. And it exposed a lot of things that we are seeing in Texas. We think about so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion as small programs. But what we've learned is that it's actually an ideology that infuses every area of the campus, big administrative bloat, and so the kinds of answers that you heard those Ivy League presidents proclaim, the insensitive and anti-Semitic answers, are the kinds of things that we've heard out of professors at the University of Texas, for example. One DEI professor said, in a system of oppression, meaning this university, you're either an oppressor or a revolutionary.
I think what we've seen so far from the universities either have been kind of closing down certain offices or renaming offices, or they've been somewhat publicly saying we're going to do similar things just in different departments throughout campus. What are your thoughts on that?
That's what we're seeing. We're seeing some universities, Texas Tech University, San Jacinto University, they closed their DEI offices down. That's done. The people who work there are still there, but they're not working there. At the University of North Texas, they established a new Center for Belonging and Engagement. Now, I don't know what that means. I'm not sure when you have students coming from all over the state and the country that anyone walks into college and feels like they belong. But I think part of the confusion, Phil, is that people believe that these DEI programs have to do with minority recruitment or civil rights. But what we've seen, the biggest indictment against them is not ideology. They have not improved student outcomes for any students, and they've been in Texas campuses 10 or 15 years. They've not increased the number of minorities who've enrolled at Texas campuses, and they've not increased diversity on Texas faculties, even though you had to, before we passed this law, sign a statement pledging that you adhere to DEI. So the biggest indictment against DEI for people who care about minority or marginalized kids is that it doesn't work.
Our efforts to have more minorities on college campuses, to have all students feel comfortable on campus, to have a diverse faculty. Are they worthy goals? Do you agree with that? And if so, how do we get there?
Absolutely, Gromer. Everybody wants that. And one of the things that's most tragic in this process is that half, we've got our 10% rule in Texas. Half the kids in the 10% are African American or Hispanic, and they're not going to college at all. And that has a lot to do with finance and a lot to do with preparation. But our goal is that every Texan, any Texas kid that wants to go and is prepared to go can go. And we've got other movements to make sure that kids are prepared to go. But of course, that's always been the goal. And that's why DEI is so disappointing, because the numbers remain small. At A&M in 2015, they asked the African American students at A&M if they felt like they belonged. And 80% said they felt like they belonged. So that's not great, but it's 80%. By 2021, after their big DEI plan, that had dropped to 55%. And that's because the ideology is so divisive.
On the other side, the Texas NAACP, they're also watching how universities implement the new Texas law.
They plan on releasing a report card for each campus. I spoke with Gary Bledsoe, president of the Texas NAACP, about what they hope it will accomplish and how it will work.
I think students are going to look at it and see especially really talented students and maybe even talented athletes. They'll see the lay of the landscape here, and some of them may choose to go elsewhere. We're hoping that this report, if it comes out, will be a guide to people because we want people to know they could do more, they could do better. And if they see some schools up there that have B's and their school has an F or a D, then maybe that's some impotence because someone else has interpreted the law and seen it differently and decided to do more. So we hope it's a positive report card and that it can at least short circuit some of the issues and problems that we've already identified with the DEI law.
Are there any policies or actions that these universities are going to be graded on?
We're going to look at the universities and how they handle complaints of a bullying nature or a hate nature, where many persons who might be disabled or minorities or whatever might feel victim to that. We saw so much of that back in 2017 and 18 around the state. It was really incredible with the number of really bad incidents affecting minority students and female students. So I think that we're gonna look at that. We're gonna look at the demographical breakdown of faculty. We're gonna try to understand, do you have faculty that identifies with students that can provide guidance to them? We're going to look at curriculum to make sure that curriculum hasn't been negatively impacted.
From your perspective, this is important because you want to know if a campus is unwelcoming for people of color in Texas.
That's true, but we also want everyone else to know. But we're also thinking again that when we get this, that hopefully they can look at it and take it as a positive and look at a way, because I think that from what our preliminary read is, there's a variance in schools and some are not interpreting it as broadly as others. And so we think that in some schools, due to culture, due to the certain types of power at the top, they have decided to use this as a purge campaign. And they're just taking anything that's associated with minorities or others and just eliminating them. And I think that's outrageous, and it's an overreach.
The conservative think tank, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, they are rolling out a tip line, if you will, for people to report violations of the law that they see. What do you think about that?
I think that this reporting hotline will have a chilling effect on individuals. I think it will have a chilling effect on professors from doing the things that they need to do. We have something called academic freedom, and you need to you need to pursue and protect academic freedom. That's what's made our universities great.
And this all puts universities in a very tough spot with people watching over their shoulder. The University of North Texas is the largest university in our area. They did not provide anyone for an interview on the topic of DEI, but did give us some information on how they're implementing the new law. On October 1st, they closed their Division of Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access because of Senate Bill 17. Staff there tell us they're still committed to meeting the needs of students through the creation of a new Center for Belonging and Engagement. That center, they tell us, is committed to cultivating a campus environment where people of all identities and experiences are appreciated and able to thrive. It aims to promote awareness and understanding of underserved student populations and promote a sense of belonging. It opened in mid-December at the University Union. Gromer, there's so much attention to what's happening on college campuses in the state. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just like any other issue that conservative grassroots activists latch on to, like school choice, anti-abortion laws, transgender legislation, all of that. What happens is it gets popular in some states, and then legislation makes its way across the country. That's what you see happening here. And what's getting lost is how do you really, push diversity and inclusion and equity measures.
If today were Election Day, who would Texas voters send to the White House? A look at where the candidates stand. We're also taking a look at the efforts to unseat Texas Senator Ted Cruz, where two Democrats stand against the Republican. You're watching Lone Star Politics.
We are now less than 48 hours from the second big vote in the race for president. The New Hampshire primary takes place this Tuesday, only 8 days after the Iowa caucuses.
Former President Trump won big in Iowa. It was a close finish for second and third place between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. The three are now the remaining major contenders to take on President Joe Biden in November. However, there remains a fourth Republican candidate, an admitted long shot, Ryan Binkley. The Richardson, Texas pastor is also president, CEO, and co-founder of Generational Equity Group. New this week from Politico, former President Donald Trump and his inner circle have urged politicians not to hire Republican strategist Jeff Rowe or his firm Axiom Strategies because they work for one of his rivals. That's according to Politico, and that's Ron DeSantis. It's an attempt to pressure DeSantis to drop out of the race. However, it also may create a headache for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and United States Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, who also works with Rowe's Axiom Strategies. Axiom released a statement to Politico saying they've elected many conservatives to office and aim to unify the Republican Party by electing more, as President Trump called for after the Iowa caucuses. And we spoke to others about political pressure from the former president. Supporting former Ambassador Nikki Haley is former Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price. We spoke with her in Iowa before the caucuses and asked her about potential blowback for not supporting the frontrunner. Here's what she said.
That's okay. I think that if you feel strongly about somebody, you have to express your opinions. And I know a lot of people, I've had tremendous success in the community and had great respect, and people don't always agree with me, but they want to hear what you have to say more often than not. And I think and this is America. We have a right to have an opinion about somebody. And if we feel strongly that we want a new beginning for this country, and I believe Nikki takes us not backwards, but forwards with a new beginning, and I think people need to understand that.
So much of Trump's candidacy is relitigating the past 2020 election, grievances, getting revenge, and you just would rather have somebody...
I would rather have somebody who's interested in closing our borders, or at least securing our southern border, working on law and order, who understands international politics, who can get America back where we need to be, who can work with people, who can bring fresh ideas to the table and move this country forward.
March 5th, the primary comes to the state of Texas, and we're getting a closer look at the standings here. This is according to a latest poll from Emerson College and Nexstar Media. Former President Donald Trump with a huge lead, 69% of the primary vote, followed by former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley with 11%. In third place, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 9% of Republican primary voters. That same poll asked about a hypothetical matchup in the general election. So this is in November. You can see former President Donald Trump is in the lead in Texas with 49%. President Joe Biden at 41%. Undecided voters, though, 10%. That is going to be an important number to watch. Gromer.
We spoke to Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller about the Trump campaign's momentum in Texas.
Just like anything, any business or any endeavor, the more you do it, the better you get at it. I mean, he's a seasoned pro at it now. He's got better people in place, a better system in place. He's more experienced himself. So, yeah, this is a well-oiled machine. He will crush and absolutely win New Hampshire, and then on South Carolina, Nevada, and Michigan. He's going to do quite well. You know, he's leading by over 30 points. I mean, he won by, over 2.5 times the nearest competitor in Iowa. I expect that he will take New Hampshire handily.
Texas?
Oh, he'll take Texas, no doubt. I mean, there's no contest here. But I think by the time we get around to the primary in Texas, it will be over. Donald Trump will be the nominee.
Commissioner, it appears that his political problems may be over. He's running away with the campaign. He does have some legal problems coming up. There is a chance that he's convicted of one of these crimes in federal court. What are your thoughts on, are you okay with that? Or what would that do to the campaign as well?
Well, there's a big problem with that because the Democrats are using the justice system as a weapon, as a political tool. People see through that. People are reacting to that. He's got as much or more support now because of all of this legal attacks on him. 4 indictments, over 90 felony charges. The likelihood of getting out of 90 felony charges is pretty slim. Surely if they've got anything there, they might make something stick. But if they do, I think he'll still be president. People are going to look beyond that. They know it's just a weaponization by the Democrats of our legal system.
In the general election, is Trump the best candidate to take on President Joe Biden, given what happened in 2020?
He absolutely is. Of course, I've been with him from day one, continue to support him. I'm working hard in New Hampshire and worked hard in the other states. But he will be the nominee, providing some catastrophic event. I don't know what that would be. But the choice is going to be between Biden and Trump. And Trump wins that hands down. If we had the election today, I think Trump would win probably by 20-point margin.
And meanwhile, Governor DeSantis has the support of Central Texas Congressman Chip Roy. He drove through a blizzard to caucus for him in Iowa last week.
I want for my 14-year-old son, Charlie, and my 12-year-old daughter, Virginia, I want a man in the Oval Office that they can look up to. I want a man in the Oval Office that they can respect and that they can emulate. Somebody who wore the uniform of the United States Navy. And who devoted his life to public service. Serving in the Navy, serving as a federal prosecutor, serving in the United States Congress, and have the great wisdom to lead Congress to go be an executive, the governor to save us Florida.
Up next, big bucks in the campaign pockets of Governor Greg Abbott. Who is behind the historic donation when Lone Star politics continues?
Another Texas race we're watching closely, the Democratic effort to remove U.S. Senator Ted Cruz.
A survey of Texas voters found Cruz is in a statistical tie with 2 Texas Democrats. If the election were held today, Congressman Colin Allred of Dallas would finish 2 points behind Cruz. Just 1 point separates Senator Cruz and State Senator Roland Gutierrez from San Antonio. Allred and Gutierrez are among 9 candidates on the ballot in the March primary that will determine which Democrat faces Cruz in November. Governor Abbott just received what his campaign called the largest single donation in Texas history. Jeff Yass, a national Republican mega donor and school voucher supporter from Pennsylvania, made the $6 million donation in December. Abbott spent 2023 unsuccessfully pushing for a voucher program and is now targeting State House Republicans in the March primary.
Yeah, we'll see how he spends that money on primary candidates who back his school choice plan.
Because that vote really did kind of fall flat. They just didn't have the votes in the Texas House.
It was a big defeat for him. And we're also watching what happens in New Hampshire, right? Hey, did you thaw out from your time in Iowa?
I did. I came back to Texas at a balmy 23 degrees it was here.
You brought it with you.
Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for more Lone Star Politics.